this girl? Did you carry my pepper?
Mama, pepper. Look at me well. Do I look like someone that steals pepper?
It was full before you came. Now half of it has disappeared.
Maybe your pepper is doing japa.
I do not believe you.
That's your problem, oh madam.
Everybody, secure your belongings. Tiwa is coming.
Check your destiny too. It looks like that's what you've really lost.
One day they'll catch you. 99 days for you, Tiwa. 1 day for the owners.
Join the prayer warriors.
Tiwa, did you take my perfume?
Me? Why would I steal your perfume? Do I look like someone who steals?
It disappeared right after you visited my house.
Then keep looking. Maybe you misplaced it.
Tiwa waka enter, I done the shine. Small trouble, but the green is fine.
This one is fine. It will look good on me.
One hand for plan. Every corner, yeah, she know how to land. Tiwa, Tiwa, you don't start again. Tiwa, Tiwa, who go cut his brain? Tiwa, Tiwa, make the whole town sing. Tiwa, Tiwa, now how much I bring the sting.
Tiwa didn't steal because she needed anything. She stole because her hands moved faster than her sense could catch up. And for years, nobody could stop her. Not her cousin, not her landlady, not her boyfriend, not one single person who ever loved her. But every story like this always has a day when the shine finally runs out. So please, subscribe now, because by the time this video is over, you will understand exactly what kind of chaos we are dealing with here. Tiwa was 24 years old, fine like correction, dressed like she just left a shoot even when she was only going to buy pure water. And she had one small, tiny, itsy-bitsy problem that had followed her since she was 7 years old. She stole things. Not because she was poor, not because she needed money, not because of any sad backstory with violins playing in the background. She stole because her hands simply moved faster than her sense could catch up. She would see something, a pen, a key holder, a slipper, someone's TV remote, a single earring, a whole standing fan if the person turned their back long enough, and her fingers would just do what they wanted to do. It was not greed, it was not calculation, it was pure, unfiltered impulse, and Tiwa herself was often the most confused person in the room whenever she looked into her bag and found things she had absolutely no memory of taking. "Why is there a spoon in my bag?" she would ask herself out loud, staring at a random tablespoon she definitely did not buy, holding it up like an exhibit in a court case where she was the accused and the very confused judge. This was her life, a constant ongoing investigation into her own hands. Her cousin and roommate, Debo, had learned to live with it the way people learn to live with a leaking roof. You don't fix it, you just place a bucket under it and continue your life. Every single time Tiwa left his room, Debo would do a quick scan, patting his pockets like a security check at the airport. "Where is my phone stand?" he would mutter, going through his drawers. And when he eventually found it, 3 days later, inside Tiwa's makeup bag, sitting comfortably beside a lipstick that was also not hers, Debo would simply sigh and say his famous line, the one that would later become the most quoted line in the entire comment section of this very story. "Tiwa, you know they do you well, but na you sabi." Meaning, roughly, this thing is not healthy for you, but that's your business. Debo was not angry. He had passed anger a long time ago. He now existed in a state of tired, amused acceptance, the way you accept that mosquitoes exist and NEPA will take light. He simply started hiding his valuables the way people hide snacks from a hungry younger sibling. He put his charger under his mattress, he locked his laptop in a bag inside another bag, he even started keeping his slippers under his pillow because one unforgettable morning, he had walked into the sitting room and found Tiwa wearing one of his slippers and one of her own slippers, mismatched, completely unbothered like it was fashion. "Abeg, why one leg be my slippers?" Debo asked her, pointing at her feet. Tiwa looked down at her own feet like she was seeing them for the very first time in her life. Ah, when did this happen? That was Tiwa's other catchphrase, the one that would go on to live rent-free in everybody's head for the rest of the year. When did this happen? She said it with such genuine shock, such wide-eyed betrayal, as if her own hands had committed a crime behind her back and refused to send her the memo. She said it when she found Debo's earpiece in her bra. She said it when she found her landlady's key holder in her school bag. She said it when, at a party, she reached into her clutch to bring out lip gloss and instead brought out somebody's car key, a key that belonged to a total stranger she had never even spoken to that night. Her landlady, Auntie Blessing, was a soft, round, big-hearted woman who had taken Tiwa in when Tiwa first came to Lagos with nothing but 2 bags and big dreams. Auntie Blessing loved Tiwa like her own daughter, gave her food whenever she cooked, checked on her when she was sick, prayed for her every single Sunday. And Tiwa, in return, had slowly, over 8 months, relieved Auntie Blessing of 1 wooden spoon, 2 hair combs, a small transistor radio that did not even work, half a bottle of perfume, and the crowning achievement, a small ceramic elephant that used to sit proudly on Auntie Blessing's television stand. "Where's my elephant?" Auntie Blessing asked one evening, standing in the sitting room with her hands on her hips, looking at the empty spot on the stand like someone mourning a family member. "Which elephant?" Tiwa replied, holding a straight face so convincing that even she, for a split second, almost believed herself. "The white and gold one. It has been there since Buhari was president." "I don't know anything about any elephant." Meanwhile, at that exact moment, the ceramic elephant was sitting inside a shoebox under Tiwa's bed, along with the spoon, the combs, and a single fork that did not match any non-cutlery set in the entire house. Tiwa did not sell these things. She did not use these things. She simply took them, kept them, admired them once, and then forgot they existed, the same way a squirrel buries nuts and then acts surprised in winter when it finds them. If stealing was a sport, Tiwa would have gone pro, except her only trophy room was a dusty shoebox under a squeaky bed filled with items that meant absolutely nothing to her the moment she took them. Then there was Kevin, self-styled KVNG, Tiwa's situationship, the kind of boyfriend but not quite boyfriend that Gen Z has perfected into an art form. KVNG liked to act like a big boy, posting pictures with rented cars and borrowed watches, captioning them things like "Grace, they speak for me," while owning 3 different barbers. KVNG thought he was the one hustling Tiwa, feeding her small lies about businesses that didn't exist, big deals that never closed. What KVNG did not know was that every single time he visited her, he left with less than he came with. His car charger, his sunglasses, a cufflink, once, unbelievably, one of his socks. Just one, not the pair. Just a single lonely sock that Tiwa took with no explanation, no plan, no reason, and that KVNG spent weeks blaming on network people where they enter house whenever he came to visit, never once suspecting the soft, sweet girl smiling at him from across the room. "Somebody stole my belt," KVNG announced one evening, patting his waist like a man who had lost a limb. "Wow," Tiwa said, sipping her drink, the belt currently coiled peacefully inside her handbag like a small leather snake taking a nap. Lagos is not safe again, honestly. If you are new here, please like this video and subscribe, because Tiwa's story is about to take a turn that even she did not see coming, and trust me, you do not want to miss what happens next. For years, this was Tiwa's rhythm. Take, forget, deny, repeat. She never felt guilty in the moment because guilt requires you to first register that you did something, and half the time Tiwa genuinely did not register it until much later, staring at a stranger's item in her bag with the confusion of a person waking up in a foreign country. Her friends had all, in their own small ways, adjusted to her. They stopped bringing valuable things around her. They started counting their belongings before and after she left, like inventory managers. Some found it funny, some found it exhausting, but everyone agreed on one thing. Tiwa's hands had a mind of their own, and one day that mind was going to walk her straight into trouble that even her charm could not talk her way out of. Before that day arrived, though, there was one incident that everybody who knew Tiwa still brings up whenever her name enters a conversation: the infamous Owanbe incident, the one that should have been a warning sign loud enough for even Tiwa herself to hear. It happened at a friend's traditional wedding, the kind of event where everybody comes dressed like royalty and the Asoebi alone cost more than rent. Tiwa arrived looking stunning, greeted everybody with hugs and compliments, danced when the bride entered, spread a little money she didn't really have, and generally behaved like a completely normal, well-adjusted guest for exactly the first 40 minutes. Then, the small chop started circulating on trays alongside little souvenir gift bags for guests. And something in Tiwa's brain flipped a switch nobody could see coming. By the time the reception was over, Tiwa had somehow left with 4 extra souvenir bags meant for other tables, a spoon from the buffet section, a decorative artificial flower that had been part of the centerpiece, one of the small battery-powered fairy lights strung along the canopy, and most confusingly of all, a single unopened bottle of hand sanitizer that had been sitting innocently on the usher's welcome table. Nobody saw her do any of it. That was the terrifying part. She moved through a crowd of over 300 people with the stealth of a trained assassin, except her target was centerpiece flowers and party favors instead of anything remotely valuable. Tiwa, why you carry the auntie for table 5 her souvenir bag? Her friend Zainab had hissed at her the next day after the bride's family called around asking if anybody had seen the missing items, genuinely confused about where 4 gift bags had disappeared to in the middle of a fully catered event. I don't even remember picking up extra bags, Tiwa said, honestly, staring into her own wardrobe where sure enough 4 identical souvenir bags sat lined up like trophies, plus a slightly wilted artificial flower poking out from behind her shoes. When did this happen? That's literally what you always say, Zainab groaned, dragging a hand down her face. Every single time. When did this happen? Tiwa, one day this thing will land you for real trouble, like they tell you. Tiwa had laughed it off then, the way she laughed everything off, returning 3 of the 4 souvenir bags with a flimsy excuse about picking up the wrong table's items by mistake, conveniently keeping the 4th one because in her words, it would be more suspicious to return all of them. Zainab's warning, like most warnings given to Tiwa over the years, went in one ear, did a lap around her brain, and exited quietly without leaving any lasting impression. It would take something louder than a friend's tired sigh to finally get through to her, and as fate would have it, that something was about to arrive in the form of one small thrift store in Yaba one hot Saturday afternoon. That day arrived on a hot Lagos afternoon, the kind of Lagos afternoon where the sun deals with you personally, when Tiwa wandered into a small thrift store tucked in a quiet corner of a Yaba, looking for nothing in particular, the way she always just wandered into places right before something ended up missing from them. The shop belonged to a woman everyone in the area called Auntie Chichi. She was not young, not old, somewhere comfortably in her late 40s, with a wrapper tied firmly around her waist, slippers that had survived several wars, and a headscarf knotted with the kind of confidence that told you she was not a woman to be trifled with, even though nothing about her outward appearance suggested danger. Her shop was small, but packed to the ceiling with clothes, shoes, bags, jewelry trays, little trinkets, the kind of place where you could spend 2 hours and still not see everything. Customers loved her because her prices were fair and her gist was even better. She would haggle with you while telling you about her children, her late husband, her business trip to Cotonou, all while sizing you up with eyes that missed absolutely nothing. The moment Tiwa stepped into that shop, something in her chest lit up like a Christmas tree. So many things, so many shiny, colorful, unnecessary things. A tray of beads here, a rack of bangles there, old wristwatches, scarves, sunglasses, key holders shaped like little animals. It was, without exaggeration, kleptomaniac heaven, and Tiwa's hands were already twitching with anticipation before she had even said hello. "Welcome, welcome," Auntie Chichi called out warmly, not even looking up fully from the shirt she was folding. "Anything you want, just tell me, or just look round, no wahala." "Thank you, Auntie," Tiwa said sweetly, already drifting toward a tray of colorful beaded bracelets, like a moth that had just spotted the biggest, brightest flame in Lagos. What Tiwa did not know What nobody in that neighborhood fully knew, actually, because Auntie Chichi did not go around announcing her business, was that this soft-spoken, wrapper-wearing woman had run a much bigger operation years before opening this humble thrift shop. Before the shop, before Yaba, Auntie Chichi had managed a large fabric warehouse with staff, suppliers, and unfortunately, more than her fair share of sticky-fingered customers and even sticky-fingered staff. She had seen every trick in the book. She had watched sweet-faced customers slide bangles up their sleeves. She had caught staff members miscounting boxes of lace on delivery day. And over the years, instead of simply calling police every single time, because honestly, some of these people were young, foolish, more impulsive than wicked, Auntie Chichi had developed her own method. A method that did not involve handcuffs or police stations, but somehow left a much deeper impression. People in the old warehouse days used to whisper about it. They called it, half jokingly, half fearfully, Auntie Chichi's school. Nobody currently in the thrift shop knew this history. Not the neighbors, not the regular customers, and certainly not Tiwa, who at that very moment had already lifted a small pair of gold-plated earrings from the tray and slipped them into her pocket while pretending to admire a scarf with her other hand. Her face did not even change. This was muscle memory at this point, smoother than breathing. Auntie Chichi, folding shirts 3 feet away, did not turn her head, but her eyes, sharp as a hawk that had survived several rainy seasons, caught the movement in the reflection of a small mirror hanging on the wall, positioned quite conveniently, exactly where it could catch the tray of jewelry from any angle. She said nothing. She simply smiled to herself, the small, knowing smile of a woman who had seen this movie many, many times before and already knew, roughly, how it was going to end. "You get good eye, oh," Auntie Chichi said, still folding. "That scarf go match your skin well, well." "Ah, thank you, Auntie." Tiwa smiled her signature charming smile, the same smile that had gotten her out of 100 sticky situations before. "You get nice things here, Sha." "I try my best," Auntie Chichi replied, and then, as if the thought had just occurred to her, she reached under the counter and brought out a small velvet pouch, opening it slowly, dramatically, the way a magician reveals the final card. Inside was a thick gold-colored bangle, slightly old-fashioned in design, but undeniably eye-catching, the kind of piece that looked expensive even if you weren't sure it actually was. "This one," Auntie Chichi said, holding it up so the light caught it just right. "Na my late husband buy am for me. Very special. I know they sell am. I just dey keep am small small because I like to look at am when I dey bored." She placed it gently on top of the counter, right in the open, right where anyone standing nearby could see it clearly, and then, almost carelessly, she turned her back to attend to another customer who had just walked in asking about shoe sizes. If you have ever watched a cat notice an open door, you already know exactly what happened in Tiwa's brain in that moment. The bangle sat there, golden, gleaming, unattended, practically vibrating with an invisible sign that said, "Please, somebody take me." Tiwa's rational brain, the small, quiet, mostly ignored part of her mind, tried to whisper something like, "This is clearly a trap. Why would she just leave something like this lying around and announce that it is special?" But that voice was, as always, drowned completely by the louder, more powerful voice that simply said, "Shiny." Before we go further, and trust me, you really do not want to miss what happens next, if this story is giving you life already, drop a comment telling me if you know anybody like Tiwa, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button because things are about to get very interesting from here. Tiwa glanced left. She glanced right. Auntie Chichi was fully occupied with the shoe customer, laughing loudly about something, her back completely turned. This was, in Tiwa's professional opinion, the perfect window. Her heart wasn't even racing because stealing for Tiwa never felt like danger. It felt like breathing. Her fingers moved with practiced elegance, sliding across the counter as she pretended to examine a nearby scarf, and in one smooth, almost balleritic motion, the bangle disappeared from the counter and slid neatly into the deep front pocket of her hoodie. Nothing happened. No alarm, no shout, no dramatic freeze frame, just Tiwa standing there, casually adjusting the scarf on the rack like nothing at all had happened, her heart rate as calm as a Sunday afternoon. She almost laughed at how easy it was. Almost. Because right as she turned to leave satisfied, already mentally planning where in her shoebox the bangle would sit alongside the ceramic elephant and the mismatched cutlery, a small, high-pitched jingling sound rang out from somewhere near her waist. It sounded almost like a tiny bell, the kind you'd hear on a cat's collar, except there was no cat anywhere in sight. Everyone in the shop turned to look. Tiwa froze confused, patting herself down, trying to locate the source of the sound, when she realized with dawning horror that it was coming from inside her own hoodie pocket, the exact pocket where the bangle now sat. Auntie Chichi turned around slowly from her conversation with the shoe customer, her face arranged in a expression of pure theatrical shock. My bangle! Where is my bangle?" she exclaimed, loud enough for the entire street to hear, loud enough that 2 more customers came rushing in from outside just to see what the noise was about.
Tiwa's mind went completely blank. This was new territory. Normally, at this stage, denial worked perfectly. Normally, she could simply say, "I don't know anything about any bangle," with the same straight face she used on Auntie Blessing about the ceramic elephant. But there was a small, undeniable problem. Her pocket was currently making noise. Loud, incriminating, sing-song noise, like her own hoodie had decided to betray her at the worst possible moment. I don't, Tiwa stammered, backing toward the door. But 2 other customers, sensing drama, had already positioned themselves near the exit, arms crossed, thoroughly entertained. "Young girl," Auntie Chichi said, walking toward her slowly. Not angry, not even particularly loud anymore, just calm, the way a teacher approaches a student who has been caught cheating for the 5th time. "Bring out my husband bangle." With trembling hands and the face of someone whose entire life flashed before her eyes, Tiwa reached into her pocket and pulled out the still jingling bangle. Attached to it, she now noticed, was a tiny, almost invisible bell, sewn cleverly into a thin thread. The kind of detail you would never notice unless you are specifically looking for it, or unless, say, you had been doing this exact trick for years and knew precisely how to catch people like Tiwa. "When did this happen?" Tiwa mumbled weakly, staring at the bell like it personally wronged her. Auntie Chichi actually laughed at that. A real, warm, genuine laugh that confused everyone in the shop, including Tiwa, who had expected shouting, police, maybe even a slap. Instead, Auntie Chichi simply collected the bangle, held it up, inspected it for damage, and then looked at Tiwa with an expression that was somehow both amused and deeply, deeply unsurprised. "You'll be the 4th one this month," Auntie Chichi said conversationally, as if discussing the weather. "Small girl, big girl, man, woman, everybody won't try Auntie Chichi bangle. Everybody thinks say na careless mistake I dey drop am for counter." She shook her head, chuckling. "It's not careless. Nothing where I do na careless." Tiwa, still frozen near the door, realized in that moment that she had walked, quite literally, into a trap so elegant she hadn't even felt the walls closing in. If you are enjoying this so far, please make sure you have subscribed, because right about now, the story is going to reveal something that even Tiwa, Queen of Thievery, never saw coming. "I no go call police," Auntie Chichi continued, folding her arms, studying Tiwa the way you study a puzzle you already know the solution to. "You get option," she paused for effect, letting the silence sit heavy in the small, crowded shop. "You go work here, for me, until your debt clear." "Debt?" Tiwa squeaked. "I never even carry am comot the shop now, auntie. And if the bell no ring, you for have done comot with am since." Auntie Chichi cut in smoothly, not even raising her voice. "So, the debt na for the attempt, and for the other things where your hand don't do before where nobody catch you. I fit see am for your face, you be repeat offender." Tiwa opened her mouth to argue, then closed it again. Because honestly, what could she even say? The woman was not wrong. 2 weeks, Auntie Chichi said. You go come here every day, help me arrange shop, greet customer, carry load, whatever I tell you. If you try your hand for anything for here, even one bead, we go start counting from zero again. You understand? The other customers in the shop were now openly filming with their phones, half laughing, half shocked, clearly already composing the caption in their heads. Tiwa, mortified beyond words, her cheeks burning hot with an embarrassment she had genuinely never felt before in her entire kleptomania career, had no choice but to nod. "Yes, ma," she said, quietly, the loudest thing in the room suddenly, her own shame. We are just getting started, so if you have not liked this video yet, please do that now, because what happens over the next 2 weeks of Tiwa's sentence is the funniest, most humbling glow-up you will ever witness, and trust me, the ending is going to hit different. The next morning, Tiwa arrived at the shop wearing an oversized hoodie, sunglasses, and the general energy of someone reporting to community service, which in a way she was. Auntie Chichi greeted her without any drama, handed her a small apron, and put her straight to work arranging shoes by size. It was tedious, it was hot, and worst of all, it was surrounded on all sides by exactly the kind of shiny, unnecessary trinkets that got her into this mess in the first place. Every hour felt like walking through a minefield made entirely of temptation. "Do not touch anything when no be your work," Auntie Chichi warned on the very first day, watching Tiwa's fingers hover a little too long near a tray of hair clips. "I get eye on the back of my head." By day 3, Tiwa understood she was not the only one working there. There were 2 other girls, both around her age, both moving with the practiced efficiency of people who had been there a while. One of them, a girl named Faridat, caught Tiwa staring at a nice pair of sunglasses on the shelf and simply smiled and shook her head, a silent warning that said more clearly than words ever could, "Trust me, don't." "You too," Tiwa whispered during a quiet moment, folding scarves beside Faridat. 6 months ago, admitted Faridat with a small laugh. "I stole one wristwatch. It don't teach me sense, small sins. Auntie Chichi don't turn all of us to correct human beings, whether we like it or not."
Tiwa learned slowly that Auntie Chichi's school had graduated more people than anyone realized. Small-time thieves reformed one embarrassing bell jingle at a time, each of them walking off their debt, each of them living a little more self-aware than they arrived. It was, in its own strange way, community service disguised as a thrift shop shift, and honestly, kind of genius. But learning that other people had gone through it did not make Tiwa's own 2 weeks any less chaotic. On day 5, her phone charger went missing from her bag, the very bag she was using at the shop. She searched everywhere, growing increasingly frustrated, until Faridat casually mentioned that Auntie Chichi had borrowed it to charge her own phone in the back room. No explanation given, no apology offered. On day 7, a bag of chin-chin Tiwa had bought for herself and left on the counter mysteriously vanished within the hour, only for her to find the empty wrapper in the small dustbin near the back, with absolutely nobody willing to confess who had eaten it. On day 9, her hairpins disappeared one by one, morning after morning, until she was down to holding her hair together with a single bobby pin and pure faith. "Auntie, somebody keeps taking my things," Tiwa complained on day 10, genuinely frustrated, patting her bag for the 3rd time that day. Auntie Chichi, without even looking up from the receipt book she was writing in, simply smiled the smallest, most knowing smile in the world. How that one day feel? Tiwa opened her mouth to respond, and then slowly, painfully, the words got stuck somewhere in her throat as the realization crept over her like cold water. She thought about Debo patting his pockets every time she left his room. She thought about Auntie Blessing standing in front of her empty television stand, mourning a ceramic elephant. She thought about KVNG blaming imaginary network people for his missing belt and his missing sock. For the first time in 24 years, Tiwa felt in her own chest the exact confusion, the exact quiet frustration, the exact Why does this keep happening to me? Feeling that she had been causing in every single person who had ever loved her. It did not feel good. It did not feel funny. It felt honestly like finally seeing her own reflection clearly after years of walking past mirrors too fast to notice. It feels terrible, Auntie, Tiwa admitted quietly, sitting down on a small stool near the counter, her earlier embarrassment now replaced with something heavier, something closer to actual shame. Auntie Chichi said simply, still writing in her book, letting the silence do the rest of the teaching. If this part is hitting you somewhere, comment, when did this happen below? Because trust me, everybody has that one Tiwa in their life. And if you haven't subscribed yet, now is the time, because the ending of this story is about to bring it all the way home. Over the remaining days, something in Tiwa began to shift. She started noticing her own hand twitching near things that weren't hers, and for the first time in her life, actually stopping herself, pulling her fingers back, taking a breath. It was not easy. Old habits, especially the kind wired straight into your impulses, do not pack their bags and leave overnight. But every time she felt that familiar pull, that shiny object magnetism, she would think about the hollow feeling of searching for her missing hairpins. And somehow, that memory was enough to make her hand stay still. There was also the matter of day 12, which Faridat later described as the day Tiwa nearly broke. A customer walked in wearing the most beautiful pair of gold hoop earrings Tiwa had ever seen in her life, dangling and catching the afternoon light every time the woman turned her head. And Tiwa, folding clothes nearby, felt the old familiar itch crawl up her fingers like electricity looking for somewhere to strike. She actually took 2 steps toward the woman before catching herself, freezing mid-stride in the middle of the shop like a malfunctioning robot. Auntie Chichi, watching from the counter, did not say a word. She simply raised her one eyebrow, slow and deliberate, the universal anti-signal for, I am watching you and you already know what you are about to do is foolish. Tiwa exhaled shakily, turned around and walked straight to the back room instead, where she stood for almost 5 full minutes, breathing, talking herself down like someone recovering from a near-miss car accident. You good? Faridat asked, following her back there, half concerned, half amused. I nearly took person earring from their own ear, Tiwa admitted, still a little out of breath. Faridat, on their actual ear. Faridat burst out laughing so hard she had to hold on to the wall. Ha, see, that one would have been a new record for this shop. Auntie Chichi don't see thief wey steal from counter, thief wey steal from bag, but thief wey one pull earring come out from person ear while the person still dey wear am. That one a different category entirely. Even Tiwa, mortified as she was, couldn't help laughing at herself, a real, genuine laugh that surprised her because for the first time she was laughing at her own impulse instead of simply obeying it. It was a small moment, almost silly, but looking back on it later, Tiwa would recognize it as the exact point where something inside her finally, truly began to shift. Not because she was forced to stop, but because she had, for a whole shaky minute, actually wanted to stop, all on her own. On her final day, day 14, Auntie Chichi called Tiwa to the back of the shop, where a small pot of stew was simmering on a gas burner, filling the air with the smell of pepper and crayfish. She handed Tiwa a plate of rice without a word, gesturing for her to sit. You don't do well, Auntie, Auntie Chichi said finally, settling into her own chair with a satisfied sigh. 2 weeks, nothing missing again from my shop, even the small things where person no go notice. Thank you, Auntie, Tiwa said, genuinely moved, surprised by how much those simple words meant to her. Me, I no do this thing to punish you now, Auntie Chichi continued, her voice softer now, more reflective. I do am because when I dey your age, small, I self used to like to take things wey no belong to me. My own mama no get money to buy me nice things, so I take am from wherever I see am. One day, a woman wey sell in market catch me, and instead of shouting, instead of police, she just sit me down and make me work for her small until I understand say the shine where I dey chase na empty shine. That thing changed my life. So now my turn to pass the lesson forward. Tiwa sat with that for a long moment, turning her spoon slowly in her rice, thinking about Debo's tired sighs, about Auntie Blessing's missing elephant, about KVNG's missing sock, about all the small invisible debts she had been collecting from people who loved her without her even realizing the weight of what she was taking from them. Not just objects, but trust, patience, peace of mind. I need to return some things, Tiwa said almost to herself. Now so the lesson they start show for real. If you have been laughing this whole time, wait until you see what Tiwa does next. And please, if this story is giving you value, hit that subscribe button right now because you do not want to miss how this ends.
The following weekend, Tiwa showed up at Auntie Blessing's house carrying a small nylon bag. Auntie Blessing opened the door, surprised, since Tiwa rarely visited without eating first and disappearing immediately after. "Auntie, I have something for you," Tiwa said, holding out the bag with slightly shaking hands. Inside, wrapped carefully in an old newspaper, sat the ceramic elephant, the wooden spoon, the hair combs, the small transistor radio, and the lonely, unmatched fork. Auntie Blessing stared into the bag for a long, silent moment, her face shifting slowly from confusion to disbelief to something that looked suspiciously like she was trying very hard not to laugh. "Tiwa," she said slowly, picking up the elephant and turning it over in her hands like she was greeting an old friend who had been kidnapped and finally returned home. "So all this time—" "I'm sorry, Auntie," Tiwa said, cheeks burning. "I don't even know why I did it. I don't know. But I'm working on it now, I promise." Auntie Blessing looked at her for a long moment and then, instead of the scolding Tiwa had braced herself for, simply pulled her into a warm, motherly hug. "My dear, thank God. I don't pray for you since. Come, let's eat." Debo's reaction was significantly less gracious, especially when Tiwa handed him back not just his phone stand and earpiece, but 11 other small items he hadn't even realized were missing, including a single AA battery and a bottle opener shaped like a fish. 11 things, Tiwa said, counting them out on the table with the slow, deliberate horror of a man doing an audit. 11, Tiwa. "I know," Tiwa said, wincing. "You know, at this point, I want a written apology and maybe a small compensation," Debo said, only half joking, holding up the bottle opener like courtroom evidence. "This one, you even took my bottle opener when I don't even drink." "I don't know why I took it," Tiwa admitted honestly. "It was just there." Debo shook his head slowly, but there was a real smile forming underneath his mock outrage. "Tiwa, you know they do you well," he said, repeating his old familiar line, but this time softer, warmer. "At least now you don't sabi say you know they do you well too. Growth." As for KMVG, when Tiwa returned his belt and his single lonely sock, he simply stared at the sock for a long, confused moment. "This one na my sock. I don't buy new pair since," he holding it up like an ancient relic. "Where the other one dey?" Tiwa opened her mouth to answer and then genuinely paused because she truly, sincerely did not know where the matching sock had gone. Some mysteries, it turned out, even reformed kleptomaniacs could not solve. "When did this happen?" Tiwa murmured, staring at the single sock with something like nostalgic confusion. And despite everything, despite the growth, despite the lesson, some habits of the mouth at least were clearly going to stick around a little longer than the habits of the hand. Now here comes the real twist to this whole story, the part that turns this from a simple funny video into something you'll actually remember. So if you've made it this far, you already know it's about to be good. Months later, Tiwa was walking through a busy market in Yaba when she noticed a young boy, maybe 16, slipping a phone case off a display stand with the exact same smooth practice motion she used to use herself. Nobody else seemed to notice. The store owner was distracted, chatting loudly with a customer about the price of rice. Old Tiwa would have kept walking, minded her business, and maybe even admired the boy's technique from a professional distance. New Tiwa, without even fully deciding to, found her feet walking directly towards the boy. "Oya, bring him back," she said quietly, not shouting, not causing a scene, just firm, the way Auntie Chichi had once been firm with her. The boy froze, startled, clearly trying to calculate whether to run or argue. "Bring what back? I never do anything," he said, the exact same denial Tiwa herself had used 1,000 times. And hearing it come out of someone else's mouth aimed at her was almost funny in how familiar it sounded. "I dey watch you since so," Tiwa said, calm, knowing, unbothered by his denial. "I know exactly how it dey work because I used to be exactly like you. Trust me, the shine where you dey chase na empty shine. Bring the phone case back before I call the man." Something in her tone, calm, knowing, unbothered by his denial, made the boy hesitate, then slowly, reluctantly, placed the phone case back on the stand. He looked at Tiwa with a mixture of embarrassment and confusion, the same look she must have worn on Auntie Chichi's face that fateful Saturday afternoon. "Why you dey care?" he mumbled, half defensive, half curious. Tiwa thought about it for a moment, surprising herself with how easily the answer came. "Because somebody once cared enough to stop me," she said simply, "and it changed my whole life. So now my turn." She gave Auntie Chichi's shop address, told him to go ask for 2 weeks of work if he really wanted to change. The same offer that once felt like punishment to her, but now looking back, felt more like the biggest favor anyone had ever done for her. Whether the boy actually went, she never found out for sure. But a few weeks later, walking past Auntie Chichi's shop, she spotted a familiar face folding shirts by the door, wearing the exact same oversized, embarrassed expression Tiwa herself had worn on day one. Tiwa smiled to herself and kept walking. Her bag, for the first time in 24 years, containing absolutely nothing that did not belong to her. Zainab, who had witnessed the entire souvenir bag saga months earlier and had long given up hope that her friend would ever change, nearly dropped her phone when Tiwa called to tell her the whole story. The bell, the bangle, the 2 weeks of forced labor, the returned elephant, the single mysterious missing sock that remained to this day unsolved. Wait, Zainab kept interrupting, laughing so hard she had to catch her breath. "So, the bangle actually had a bell sewn inside it? Tiwa, you got caught by a woman selling second-hand clothes for Yaba after I warned you at the wedding, after everything?" "I know," Tiwa groaned into the phone, equal parts embarrassed and amused at her own downfall. "Don't remind me." "I'm definitely reminding you," Zainab said, "forever. This one is going straight into the group chat." And it did. The story of Tiwa and the jingling bangle became, for a while, the most retold gist among her friends, each retelling slightly more exaggerated than the last, until somebody swore the bangle had actually played a full jingle tune loud enough to be heard 3 streets away. Tiwa let them exaggerate. She had earned every bit of the teasing, and honestly, laughing about it with people who genuinely loved her felt very different from the quiet, guilty secrecy she used to carry around in her chest whenever she opened that shoebox under her bed. Debo noticed the change first in the small, quiet ways that matter most. He stopped hiding his charger under the mattress. He left his laptop bag open on the table without a second thought. One evening, he even handed Tiwa his house keys to go lock up while he ran an errand, something that 6 months earlier would have been considered an act of pure insanity. "You trust me with your key now?" Tiwa asked, genuinely touched, turning the key over in her palm like it meant something bigger than metal and teeth cut into a small ridge. "Don't make it a whole moment," the boss said, waving her off, though the small smile on his face gave him away completely. "Just lock the door well, that's all." Auntie Blessing, for her part, put the ceramic elephant back on the television stand exactly where it used to sit, and every time Tiwa visited after that, she noticed the older woman glance at it and then glance at her, with a warmth that felt like forgiveness fully settled into place, no leftover suspicion hiding underneath. So, here's the moral of the story, plain and simple, no big grammar, no confusion. Whatever you take from people who love you, their things, their trust, their patience, their peace, you are not just stealing objects. You are stealing pieces of the relationship itself. And eventually, life has a funny, embarrassing, jingling bell way of making you feel exactly what you made other people feel. Tiwa's hand used to move faster than her sense. It took one loud, humiliating bangle and one wise, patient Auntie Chichi to finally slow her down long enough to actually think. The good news is, it is never too late to return what you took, apologize for what you cannot return, and become the kind of person who helps the next sticky-fingered soul find their own way back to. If Tiwa's chaos made you laugh even once, if her catchphrases lived in your head rent-free, if you saw a little bit of somebody you know,
or maybe, just maybe, a tiny bit of yourself in this story, do not scroll away without hitting that subscribe button and leaving a comment below. Tell us, when did this happen to you? We will be right here waiting to tell you the next one.